All right, 7 p.m. on March 11, 2024. We're going to begin this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education. We'll ask everyone to please stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Conti?
Present.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Present.
Dr. Oladi?
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So board members, in your packets were minutes to approve for the regular meeting and executive session of February 12th, 2024. Any questions or comments about those? All right, seeing none, I'll ask you, Mr. Kelly, to please enter those. So we will start off with the report of the student representative. Ms. Bimson, welcome.
Good evening. So RHS has been busy with extracurriculars and academics in this transition period to spring. The spring sports have officially finished, and winter sports are officially starting Thursday, and winter sports have concluded with the varsity dinner in the past week, which celebrated all of RHS students' accomplishments as individuals and teams. The Battle of the Bulldogs spring volleyball tournament is approaching within a month, where teams of students and a teacher will compete against each other in games to support the Special Olympics. The fashion show for the senior class was February 7th, where they raised money for the graduating class and their project graduation coming in spring. To celebrate the new season, the pep rally is in 2 weeks following Spirit Week, so Students' Council picked themes for each grade to dress as, including themes such as country and music genre, and each day of the week, students of each grade dress in their specific genre, and then this participation earns them points, which will be counted at the end of the week at the pep rally. Similarly, there's Links for Life, where each grade can buy paper links and support the Student Council Foundation and money towards it. So the school-wide event is a fun time for RHS students to compete and then also support a good cause. Similarly, the RHS Band and Irish Club marched in the Rutherford St. Patrick's Day Parade to show their support and their roles in the school. The musical is this Friday and Saturday. Friday's opening night, and Saturday there's 2 shows. Other accomplishments to note: 3 RHS students took top places in the NJPTA contest, where they shared their talents in literature and film production. Another student won an award for her film production in the Elks Drug Awareness Contest. Performances like these make RHS proud, and we look forward to accomplishments like this in the future. So thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bimson. Any questions? I just want to say that the Varsity Sports Board dinner was great, and you're very humble because you were acknowledged. And, so congratulations on all your successes.
Thank you.
So quick question.
Yeah.
You always have very well-rounded reports that speak to athletics, arts, extracurriculars. So what are your sources? Do you speak to students, or how do you sort of channel all your information?
Yeah, so some of my friends, I get a lot of the band and play from one of my friends because she's in the choir and the band. A lot of times students will post on Our High too, which is like the newspaper committee that like students can make articles about. And so that'll be like current things. I kind of just ask around people, friends, teachers.
Got it. No, you do a really nice job.
Thank
you
you
for sharing all those things.
Who wrote this? This was great.
Booster, that's in the program, the Booster Club.
That was
I don't know who writes it, but that's in the program. You saw about the athletic?
sports
The varsity
highlight?
dinner.
Yeah, that came out of the program the night of the dinner.
Oh, well, that's right. I thought
I
it was
wrote
the
it.
envelope.
No,
Okay, thank you.
No, it came out of the
Thank you. It was
program.
well done.
Yeah,
Really nicely
we get
done.
that every time, but I thought to Poppy's comment, it was a particularly successful season, both for teams, but also individual accomplishments. Again, Dr. Ly's being humble, his son set a school record, as did other students, and swimming sectional championship, which is a really challenging thing for a sectional championship in any sport, but swimming in particular. So there were a lot of really outstanding accomplishments that I thought to share with everyone. But that's usually in the back. Also, I think you mentioned, I'm not sure if you did or not, the academic decathlon. Did you mention academic decathlon?
Oh, no.
No. The academic decathlon came in second in the state. They were the defending state champions, but they've been first or second probably 5 or 6 times over the last 12, 13 years. They don't go on to only one school goes on to the in-person nationals, but they go on to an online national competition. So it really is against some of the strongest high schools in the region, the state, to come out in the top every year is remarkable for the students and for Mr. Narazi, who's been at the helm for over 20 years with all this success. So congratulations to them as well.
Yeah, not to keep going with track, but I think there was a big uptick in enrollment in the winter track
Yeah.
and field team as well,
Yeah.
which was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the thing that was interesting too. The number of participants in a lot of the sports increased, and a lot of the accomplishments in a lot of the sports increased. Speaking of the academic decathlon, just last year, our distinguished graduate was Rami Youssef, who I think was class of 2012, maybe 13, I don't remember exactly. I was principal here at the time. Rami was a presenter last night at the Academy Awards. The movie he was in won several Academy Awards. I can't think of the name of it now. Pretty Little Things. And he is going to be the host of Saturday Night Live on March 30th.
Yep.
So that's not that long ago. He was sitting in your chair. I think he might have been. Was he a board rep? Yeah, he was a board rep.
Yeah.
So 12 years from now, I expect to see you hosting Saturday Night Live.
See you on the Tonight Show.
He's going to be in the Olympics.
Same thing. Well, they can host too. Sometimes, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you for your report. Always enjoy that portion of the evening. You can feel free to stay. We're going to have a preliminary budget presentation if you'd like to stay for that, or if you have other things you need to attend to, we understand. All right. Well, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Bobby.
Enjoy the budget.
All right, so we are going to move on now to a special presentation for the preliminary budget presentation by Mr. Kelly. Just to begin, want to thank Mr. Kelly, Mr. Hurley, and the Finance Committee, as well as the Building and Grounds Committee, just for their work that they've done on putting together the preliminary budget and for the transparency and all the things that are going to be in there. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Kelly.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me here? This will be pretty quick. I think we've had multiple meetings with the Finance Committee and with the Buildings and Grounds Committee, so I think most of the board knows what to expect here. As always, we start the budget process by considering our objectives for the following school year, in this case 24-25. We certainly want to maintain our current programs and build upon them whenever possible. We need to review our staffing needs. We provide for facilities improvements, maintenance, and repairs. And in addition, the last couple of years have provided these other two objectives we need to consider. One is the ESSER funding. When we received the ESSER funding and had to submit applications, we made it a point to make sure we did not, to the extent possible, we did not put any recurring expenditures in those grants. Because then once the grants go away, then you're eliminating a program, or you've got to find a way to pay for it. So we were generally successful in doing that. There were a couple programs, the IXL and the Newsella, that were paid for using the ESSER funds. and the teachers got a lot of value out of them, so we've had to incorporate them into the budget. So, like I said, I think we did a good job with ESSER, and we just did non-recurring funds. But there were a couple things that slipped through. But as long as they're making good use of it, I'm happy to try and find the money. In addition, the inflationary pressures of the last couple years are still present. They have eased somewhat, so we have to consider pricing and costs going forward. Sources of funds, as always, the lion's share is the local tax levy. We'll get into that in a second. We also have state aid. We have federal aid. I'm not going to discuss that. That is really just our ESEA funds and the IDEA funds. Neither one of the, well, no, that's not true. ESEA does not impact the budget. So whatever we budget on the revenue side, we budget for on the expenditure side, it's going to wash. If we don't spend it, it goes back. The IDEA, we have budgeted about $530,000, and we do use that to offset our out-of-district tuition costs. So that's a real benefit to us. But that's all I'm going to say about federal aid. And then miscellaneous, we'll talk about that a little bit when I get there. Oh, you can't read this. Local tax levy. We start with a base of 2023-24, the current year. And you can see that for the general operating budget, I can't find it. We have a base of 46,700,000. That's the budget, the tax levy that was approved at these meetings last year. So that just carries forward. To that, we have, as you know, a 2% tax levy cap. So we add 2% to that. And then we look at allowable adjustments. Those are adjustments that the state does permit you to increase your tax levy beyond the 2%. And these are things that are costs are generally escalate more than 2%. In our case, the only thing that pertains here is our health benefits. We have budgeted an increase for next year based on the recommendation of our advisors of 10%. So the 2% is obviously not going to cover that. The allowable adjustment of $275,000 is intended to get us over that particular finish line. That adds another 0.6 to the tax levy increase for a total of 2.6% on the general operating. The debt service tax levy, that's not up for discussion here today because that's already agreed to, committed to, and that is what it is. Again, we start with last year's number, which is $3,109,000. The only change is contractual in nature, so it's the obligations of our principal and interest for the 24-25 school year. So those are reduced by about $31,000, which brings us to a total debt service tax levy of $3,078,000. You can see the totals there, and I'm having trouble reading them, but it gives us a net tax increase of 2.4%. The allowable adjustments we just talked about. I have a few examples up there. Enrollment, ours enrollment has been very flat the last few years, so we don't get any benefit from that in terms of the tax levy. A couple other things there. Responsibility shifted to or from another entity. I don't know who's doing that, but we can get some credit for that if we do that. And as we said last year, that 2% cap is somewhat supportable in times of low inflation, but that's not where we are right now. So it becomes more problematic when inflation rears its ugly head, as they say. Inflationary pressures, like I mentioned, health insurance premiums. We came in about 9% increase this year, and we're anticipating 10% for next year. Salaries, most of these are already contracted, the REA. We are entering into the third year of the 3-year agreement there, so those numbers are carved in stone, and that's a 3% increase. Other insurances are going up 10%. That's workers' comp, that's property, that's anything else we have. So that's about $40,000. State aid. You probably saw this in the news about 10 days ago. That was our number. Up top there is our number for this year, $3,148,000. We can expect an increase of 7.1% for next year. That's about $223,000. which brings us up to $3,371,000. This is all subject to the approval of the assembly down in Trenton, so we'll see how that goes. But generally, that's not an issue. The history of state aid. This is a little difficult to see here, but you see the little blue bars at the bottom. Those represent state aid over the last 20 years or so. And you see it's generally pretty flat, pretty consistent year after year. There was a little dip in, I think that's 10, 11, and that's when Governor Christie came in, and you remember he pushed through some cuts, and our budget, that reflected in our total budget as well. But generally, we're on, an upward path. I mean, that's kind of what we want to see because, it reflects the reality that prices go up, and we want to maintain our programs. So the orange bars, the taller ones, are the general operating budget year after year after year. So those are the ones I'm referring to that we do ideally like to see that slight upward trajectory throughout the years. The squiggly line across the middle, that is the percent that's a state aid as a percent of the budget. So you see 20 years ago, we were up at 10%. The percentages are on the right-hand side of that screen. So 20 years ago, the state was contributing 10% of our general operating budget. It bounced around a little bit there, and then the lowest point is when Governor Christie came in and he did cut state aid dramatically. At that point, we were down at about 4% of our general operating budget. Since then, it jumped up over a couple of years. It's been relatively flat at about 6% year after year there. This year, it's about 6.3%. And it is slightly higher, and that's because there was a 7% increase in state aid for next year that has been committed to. Miscellaneous sources of funds. There's a number of these. Excess surplus. This is an audited number that comes out of the audit of our 2022-23 financial statements. And that number has to go into the next budget development process, which is this one right now. So last year was $500,000 we had to build into the 23-24 budget. Now we're looking at $468,000 to build into the 24-25 budget. That is in there. That is a trajectory I do want to see, a slight decrease year after year after year. Ideally, I'd prefer not to have this at all, because when we look at the budget surplus for the year following the audit, what's left I'd like to put into capital reserves so we can work on some projects here. So that's my goal every year, is to work that down, and sometimes I'm more successful than others. Capital reserve, I have a whole slide on that. You'll see exactly what's in there for next year. It's about 1.6 million. Last year it was 3 million. That swing doesn't really impact anything. This money is coming directly from our capital reserve account, and there are specific projects that total up to those amounts. Last year, the 3 million, that was primarily the field out here. That was about 2.3 million. So this doesn't have any impact on any of the other spending because it's coming from a separate pool of money, the capital reserve fund. But it is a source of revenues for our budget as we move forward. In addition, we have the Bulldog Academy. They've been very successful, and we are building some of those proceeds into the budget as well. Uses of funds, no surprises here. Challenges and assumptions, staffing is an issue. Salary increases are, like I said, not much of an issue this year because the REA, it's 3%. We have salary guides for that. We know exactly what those members will be getting next year. We are in negotiations, as you know, for the administrators and the supervisors. So that's, we've tried to put a number in there that makes some sense based on how those negotiations are going. Health benefits premiums, we talked about that already. We're going up about 10% for next year. Technology needs, I have a slide for that. Out of district placements, I can talk about that. And facilities maintenance, that's an ongoing challenge, but we're addressing that with the capital reserve funds, and I'll get to that in a second. Personnel, staff, not only teaching staff, all staff. We have quite a few retirements this year, so that's enabled us to maintain some of our programs. For our needs, in terms of staffing needs for next year, the budget now includes an additional 1 FTE science teacher for the high school. In addition, the kindergarten center We currently have a .84 RTI teacher, I think it is, going up to a 1.0. It's not a big swing in terms of salary dollars, but this does make this person eligible for benefits. But there is a need for a full-time RTI teacher. And at the district level, we're looking into hiring 2 full-time painters. We got a lot of requests from every school this year to paint the buildings, hallways, classrooms. And we used to be on a schedule. Every year we do one school and we rotate throughout. We kind of fell off that the last couple of years. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but we are off that. So we're looking, and this is subject to change, but bring in a couple painters, work the 3 to 11 shift, plan out paint jobs for them throughout all schools, throughout the school year, classrooms, hallways, everything. So that's something we're talking about. Teacher assistants, we've budgeted what we need. That's subject to change throughout the year as student needs change. So we keep that in mind. We try and build a little extra in there just to cover that. Technology and equipment needs, we are leaning into the use of leases. These are lease purchase agreements. For next year, we have significant technology needs, and I know the strategic planning committee is aware of this, but the core switch, the switches at high school and Union Middle School need to be replaced. They're at end of life right now. Cabling, we have applied for E-rate funding. That's a federal program to support schools' technology plans. That brings us $348,000. The needs for those items, but we're looking at a 5-year lease. So there's a $73,500 lease payment built into the budget. The $348,000 is not in the budget. Similarly, Chromebooks, we lease these every year, so 4 or 5 year lease, and then as the old one rolls off, we enter into a new lease agreement on that. This is for, I think it was 1st and 9th grades. 4-year lease on this one, $35,000 a year. We also have need for a school bus. By law, once the school bus, assuming there are no exceptions provided by the state, which there are not right now, once the school bus hits 15 years, it has to come off the road. So we have one coming off the road in December of this year. We're looking to replace it, so we'll get that moving over the summer. It's a 54 passenger bus. It's $125,000. We'll lease that over 5 years, be about $26,000 a year. And that brings our total lease obligation, assuming all these go through as I've laid out here, to about $350,000, our annual lease obligation. And like I said, every year some roll off and we enter into a few more. Out of district placements, we touched on that a second ago. Some students are classified as special needs through their IEPs. Specialized programs are not always available in districts, so we have to look outside of the district to provide those services. Our first port of call is the South Bergen Jointure Commission. That's as you know, a public school district. It serves South Bergen County, and they provide a lot of special ed programs for students. They also do a lot of hour transportation, and some other cooperative type services as well. If they can't help us, we go to other public school districts. These are generally the least expensive options. But if we can't make that happen, then we have to go out to a private school for students with disabilities. Those are more expensive. They typically require higher transportation costs to get the kids out there. And often, with any of these kids, often there are extraordinary services that are needed, OT or PT or nursing. So, we do what we have to do, but we do look for the most cost-effective way to do that. Did you?
What years does a jointure serve? How old and grade? What grade? Is that?
All of them, pre-K up through 12. Yeah. So having said that, this is what our out-of-district placements look like over the last 20 years. The blue bars are the tuition dollars, budgeted year for year. You see, from 20 years ago, we had a pretty significant and consistent increase. It maxed out in, I think that's 15, 16. At that point, we did introduce a couple of in-district programs, so we were able to bring a lot of those kids back, so that reduced our tuition expenditures dramatically. The red line, the red squiggly line going across the top is the number of students who are currently or placed out of district in each of those years. You see it's down significantly for next year. That's the plan. We do have a couple of extra spots budgeted in there just in case, but we've had a lot of students graduating this year and quite a few moving out of district as well. So that explains that decrease. Just a little history on that. Facilities needs, there's that, you saw that number before, the $1.597 million. That's the funds we're looking to take out of capital reserve, and this is what we're looking to do with it. The kindergarten center, a boiler replacement. Well, a year ago, Christmas, we had a scare there. We thought the boiler might have been shot at that point, but we got it up and running, John did, and it's working, but it needs to be replaced. Similarly, the roof replacement at Pierpont. This is the roof overlooking the playground on the back side of the original building. It's been leaking like a sieve, so we'll get that done too. Union School, the Univent replacements. We've talked about this. This is the SDA grant that we're eligible for, which is about $160,000. This project is about $400,000. This will replace, I think, 8 Univents in 8 classrooms at Union. We have to demonstrate in the budget that we have the money for our share, the $240,000. So I'll be letting the SDA know that tomorrow. But that is our share of that project that we're already working toward. Minor roof repairs at the high school, and then this was Mr. Gamboa's major request, his biggest priority: HVAC and plumbing renovations throughout the district. We got things springing leaks all over the place, HVAC issues all over the place. So I asked them to document it. The Buildings and Grounds Committee has already had this conversation, but we want to just see if we can knock it out in one fell swoop this summer. So there's situations throughout the district where there'll be a pipe in the basement that springs a leak. We patch it, and 10 feet down the line, it springs a leak again. So the whole thing has to be looked at and replaced. In addition, there's the SDA assessment. That's when the Schools Development Authority, when they go out to bond to pay for all these projects throughout the state, now they're pushing their principal and interest payments back to us, and every district, not just us. This has been in the budget for the last 12 to 15 years, this exact same number. So so we have to factor that into the budget too. So next steps, March 11th, that's today, is asking for your approval so that I can submit it to the county office. It's due by March 20th. And then the 29th is the public hearing on the budget. At that point, I will have heard back from the state if they have any concerns, any changes. I don't remember them ever changing the budget. They may have asked for different documentation, but it's never resulted in a change to what you're approving. But at that point, assuming everything's under control, I'll ask for the board to approve final approval on the budget. And then the next day, we'll go out and put it into place. Any questions on any of that? Diane?
We're not buying an electric bus, although we're constantly being urged.
No, we don't have the infrastructure to handle an electric bus. We're even, as you know, on a day-to-day basis, we're not quite clear where we can store the buses. So, the electric needs the plug-ins, and it needs to recharge overnight. So we just.
About that they're going to be asking districts to purchase those, but not yet. Okay.
Not yet. Mr. Sprayberry?
I'll just back up what you said from the Buildings and Grounds Committee, Mr. Gamboa and yourself, the presentation of what needs to be done in the aging district and what you're doing. So great job overall.
Oh, thank you.
Out there, I know Mr. Gamboa's example in getting that amount of renovations done or repairs done at one time, be huge what's on his plate.
Yes. Yeah, and focus on bigger things. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Olati?
Yeah, no, really thorough presentation. 2 quick questions. So the bus lease, you said the shelf life's about 15 years. So we lease a bus for 5 years, then what happens?
Well, then it's ours.
So then we own it.
We own
So
it,
it's like
yes.
finance, basically.
Yeah, we cannot, we are prohibited from entering into a lease any longer than 5 years. Normally, you try and match these up with the expected lifespan, so we try and do it over 15 years. We're not allowed to do that. So like the switches that you saw there, that was a 5-year lease. You know, that should match pretty closely to the lifespan of those switches.
I think
the lease term.
the thing is, these are all leases to own.
Got it.
Yes, oh yeah, all of them.
Not
that was-
like-
I'm thinking about like car
At least
ownership,
a
you
car you have
finance to own.
no, right.
versus
So
lease.
these-
Yeah, these all have a $1 purchase option at the end of the lease,
Got it.
so.
That's
Okay.
an exceptionally good lease rate then. It's only $5,000 more than,
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah. Well, we go, you know, we pursue that competitively too. So when it comes time to get a bus, we go out, we look at state contracts, we look at cooperative purchasing agreements to get the best price on the bus. And then we do the same thing for the financing. So,
That's good
That's-
math. Must be on the finance committee. That was for James. He's not paying attention. The quick other question. You mentioned the 2 full-time painters. Is the vision for that role for a year, or is it kind of a
well, no,
long-term
ideally
role?
that would be
Like just
permanent.
up until about 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, we had painters as part of our maintenance. That was their job. Now, we still used to bring in outside vendors if we were doing a major, project in the summer. But for the most part, they were able to keep up on things. And if there was a little lull from painting, they would pitch in with other, maintenance kind of projects. So having someone on staff is not, we had it for a long time. But in that year, probably was the year that you saw the big dip, the Christie cut year, where we had to roll back on a lot of custodial and maintenance staff, and we cut back on painters. So it certainly would be able to get things done in a more timely fashion if there was a tremendous need, But I think we would just kind of assess it, right, on a year-to-year basis to see, are we getting bang for the buck for it? And so,
And I think also it's important to note that each of the schools put into their budget some funds for painting. If we were able to do them all by hiring a painting service to come in and take care of it over the summer, we'd be talking about close to $500,000.
yeah.
So we tried to limit it in the past to just one school a year, say $60,000, $70,000 and get that done. But they're all in desperate need of painting. So, we thought this was, the best way to approach it, and, we'll take a crack at it.
got it. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm just going to note the lack of the Sally slide. Can you make sure your
No, we
successor
talked
has
about that. No, that'll go in the April 29th meeting.
The dollar sign, I think, yeah.
Sally slide. I thought that was the Greg slide. I think we renamed that.
James slide then.
We good?
Any other questions?
Again, I want to thank Joe and his staff and the administrators as well who contribute, their building budgets. And it's always a challenge to project a year out. And it's also a challenge to try to fit all these 3% and 5% and 10% into a 2% cap. And, we managed to do that. I'm proud to say that we in the 10 or 11 years that we both have sat in these chairs, dropping our pens, we have not had to cut anything. We've been able to add despite the constraints that we face. And a lot of it has to do with creative financing, the leasing, looking at different ways to get the job done. So I want to thank Mr. Kelly and his whole staff. And like I said, he's the major driver, but there's so many people who have their hands in the budget, and the board's finance committee and building and grounds committee as well for working with us on the development of it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ditto. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Hurley for the report of the superintendent.
Very brief report. Poppy covered a lot of what I was going to say about some of the students' accomplishments. She did mention the high school play coming up this weekend. She mentioned some of the awards the students have won, both individually and collectively. So, and I put all of that in, or most of that into the communication that I sent out with the board packet, so you can see where that's coming. Summer Richmond Academy will be up and running again this summer at Lincoln School. That's where we house it, and is open to K-3 students, rising K-3 students. April 1st, I think the message already went out. April 1st is or will be going out in the next day or two. April 1st is when registration begins. Tuition will be the same as it's been since, I think, 2019. I want to thank the REA, Ms. Spence's here, for their March Madness Food and Fun Day. Unfortunately, this is the second year in a row that I was out trying to assign teachers and staff up in the job fair. But I'm sure, Colleen, I'm sure it was like every other year, right? Well attended and
Really, lots of people.
great. And the thing is, that's, 2 cans of food or 2 boxes of food, at least from every person that comes in that goes to the food pantry. So that's a great accomplishment. So thank you, and thank everyone for that, and thank the community for coming out and supporting that. I think everything else I was going to mention, I went over when Poppy was speaking, or I jumped in and added to it. We will be having some committee meetings April 1st. I think we mentioned at Curriculum and Instruction that we're going to be having a bunch of those meetings going forward, so I'm thinking we're going to do one there. I'm not sure. Hopefully, nothing goes awry with the county that we need a finance committee meeting, but if we need it, we'll have one. And personnel will be meeting, usually that meeting before the May meeting, we have a meeting to review items there. Okay? So I'll be sending all this out to you ahead of time so you know when we're meeting, when we're not meeting. Okay? And that's it for me today.
All right,
I'll make some comments too for various segments and some things I want to mention when we get to a part of the agenda.
All right, questions or comments, Mr. Hurley? Hearing none, move on to the report of the president. First off, I think as a Board of Ed, we know that the Rutherford Education Foundation raises money for the district that's not supported by the school budget. And so a couple of events coming up. Probably shouldn't mention the Wizards game because it gets sold out in about 10 minutes after it goes online, but it is, it's sold out. Okay, won't mention
It's
the
sold
date.
out, yeah.
Great. Wine tasting is on April 27th. So for those who are interested, got a couple of members who are also in the RAF. It's always a great event. Again, supports the schools. As we're getting toward the final part of the school year, a reminder, Rutherford High School graduation. Anyone know the date?
June 20 something.
Thursday, June 20th. So please mark your calendars. Thursday, June 20th. We're getting into those final months. It was great to have everyone there this past year. Wanted to thank everyone who is serving on the negotiation groups that are working with the RAA and RSA on their contract negotiation. Appreciate everyone's time and strategic efforts. Wanted to let everyone know, I believe a bit of housekeeping on March 10th, you all should have gotten an email about submitting financial disclosure statements, completing those. So just make sure to do that. The deadline's March 25th, which is in a couple of weeks. So essentially, when you download the PDF, you can actually complete everything on the PDF and then save it and submit it online. So just make sure to get those done. Next year is a CUSAC year, and so they look at this year's things that we did. So it's important every year, but just make sure to get those in on time. And then finally, just wanted to say that NJSBA has a lot of workshops out there. So it's worth going on, checking your board emails every now and then. There's one on March 16th about finances and fundraising. One on May 10th on public relations skills and how to be sort of stewards of the district as communicators. So if anyone's interested in any of that PD, feel free to let me know. That's it. Any questions? All right, hearing none, then we are going to open the meeting to the public for any items related to the agenda at 7:40 p.m. Any items? Seeing none, going to close the meeting at 7:40 p.m. And now we're going to move on to new business where there is action to be taken. And we will start with personnel. Mrs. Cole.
Good evening. There are 27 motions to be forward tonight. Number 1 and 2 are resignations. Number 3 is the approval of Ms. Jessica Saxon to be the elementary school principal at Washington School effective July 1st, 2024, to replace Mr. Bill McKay. Number 4 is to approve Jacqueline Gagliardo as Director of Guidance effective July 1st, 2024, to replace Dr. Shannon Hopkins. Number 5 is to approve Tamara Lee as a confidential assistant to the business administrator effective March 29th, 2024. Number 6 is to approve Samuel LeBreult as the physical science teacher for Rutherford High School effective September 1st, 2024. Number 7, to approve Vanessa Calvello as the art teacher for Union Middle School effective September 1st, 2024. And number 8, to approve Cecilia Andler as the confidential administrative assistant registrar in the superintendent's office effective April 8th, 2024. This is a replacement position. Number 9, to approve the head custodian for the kindergarten center. Number 10 through 13 is the approval of long-term substitutes. Number 14 is to approve the coordinator of the Bulldog Care Program for the district. Number 15 and 16 and 17 are to approve transfers. Number 19, to approve the following coaching assignments as listed. Number 20, to rescind approve the following middle school co-curricular assignments as listed. Number 21, to approve the coordinator of the Summer Enrichment Academy. Number 22, to approve the following teacher revision and edit curriculum for the Summer Enrichment Academy as listed. Number 23, approve an extension in dates for disability leave with pay. Number 24 is to approve a long-term substitute teacher assistant at Pierpont School. Number 25, to approve the following substitute teachers as listed. And number 26 is to approve the following substitute teacher assistants as listed. And number 27, to approve the following travel reimbursements as listed.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Cole? We need to note any of the changes that were here.
I've got it.
You got it. Okay. Any comments want to make, Mr.
Yeah,
Early?
I'd like to just, first of all, acknowledge, this is the first time we haven't had a retirement on the agenda for quite a while. But I do want to, very pleased to welcome back to the district, Jackie Gagliardo as the new Director of Guidance. She began her career here in Rutherford at the high school as a guidance counselor about 12 or 13 years ago. Was here for a short period of time, then moved on and comes back to us with several years of director experience. So we welcome her back. I'm very pleased that Ms. Jessica Saxon will be moving into the role as principal at Washington School. Has been in the district since 2008, and in the last 5 years has been the assistant principal at Pierpont. And the board got to hear from her this year when the committees were here to report. And also a new Bulldog Care director, Mr. Salvo. That's an important job, but we need a replacement position. She's been with us since the beginning. So we have a lot of key people coming in the next couple of months, and I'm pleased that we're able to bring forward such solid candidates to the board.
All right, questions or comments? All right, Mrs. Cole, do you want to move those?
Yes, I would like to move motions 1 through 27 under personnel.
Okay, do we have a second? All right, Mr. Conti, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes to all, but abstaining from motion 27, item 3. Thank you.
thank you. Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Owadi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right. Now that it's officially approved, first want to congratulate again Mr. Mulcahy and Dr. Hopkins and all their great work. And because these are two big senior positions, very excited about Ms. Scagliardo from everything you said, and Ms. Saxon for all her accomplishments in the district. It's going to be really exciting. So we are going to move on now to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. We did have a meeting on March 4th on curriculum instruction. Mr. Hurley, Christina Cole, Dr. Alati, Mr. Charles Ryan, myself, and Mr. Maison could not make it. The main thing that was discussed, and it's mostly important, is the new math program that will be, the board is approving. It's the Envisions taking place from the older one, which was Math and Focus. There were curriculum approvals in ELA throughout the grades, and lots of RHS, I guess a lot of them are electives, aren't they? Public speaking and reading and so forth. The pre-K and K kindergarten program is filling up nicely, and summer programs are set. There are 6 resolutions. Number 1 is the approval of the math series from Envision Mathematics. 2, well, the same part of that one, is the curriculum for approval, mostly English ones, ELA, and then honors English as listed. 2 is out of district placements. 3 is field trips totaling 130. 4 and 5 is harassment, intimidation, and bullying decision. And 6 is home instruction for 2 students.
All right, thank you. I just want to say that I was really impressed during the last curriculum and instruction meeting, listening to Mr. Ryan and Mr. Hurley walk us through a lot of updates and, the methodology, the thinking that went into this based on committee work. I thought it was really helpful to hear the rationale and get a deeper understanding. Questions or comments? Shirley?
I believe there's 5, not 6. There's the harassment, intimidation, bullying got carried over the next page.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Number 4. Okay.
5.
And one other, just to comment on what Mrs. Jones read and talked about from the committee and what Dr. Alati just added. Over the next 3 or 4 months, you're going to see these massive curriculum approvals because of the new standards that came out in language arts, particularly, and also math, permeate the other subject areas. So they touch other areas as well. So there's going to be several of these bulk curriculum approvals. And that's why we're going to have a lot of curriculum and instruction committee meetings to kind of review them ahead of those approvals. We want to have everything in place well ahead of September. Again, Dr. Alati alluded to the fact that we are in the CUSAC cycle next year, so we want to make sure everything is done in a timely fashion.
All right, Ms. Jones, do you want to move those?
Thank you. I move resolutions 1 through 5.
All right,
Curriculum instruction.
thank you. We have a second. Mr. Bogosian, any last questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, we will move on now to finance. Mr. Bogosian.
The Finance Committee met last Monday to review the status of the budget development, where we discussed the key drivers of the budget along with updated state aid figures. Tonight, we have 13 motions to consider. Number 1 is to approve submission of the tentative budget to the NJDOE. Number 2 is for the district travel budget. Number 3 is submission of the SEMI Program Corrective Action Plan. Number 4 is routine approval of bills. Number 5 is the contracted service agreement with the South Bergen Jointure for various services. Number 6 is an agreement with South Bergen Jointure for transportation. Numbers 7 through 9 are parent transportation reimbursements. Number 10 is to accept with gratitude a donation of $2,000 to the Heroes and Cool Kids program from the Rutherford Elks. Number 11 is to accept with gratitude a donation of lacrosse equipment from the Rutherford Lacrosse Association. Number 12 is a lease to buy agreements for 6 photocopiers. Please note that the agenda states the finance rate was 3.5%. However, it is actually 5.9. And number 13 is the purchase of the district's new math curriculum.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments?
I just want to thank the Elks every year since the inception of Heroes and Cool Kids, which goes back to probably about 2008 or so. They have come up with this donation to help partially fund the program, which I think is a valuable program for both the high school kids who participate and the students in Pierpont who they go and visit, and also the Lacrosse Association for their donation, which was appreciated, obviously, very much by the coaches and the athletes and the athletic program.
Thanks. Can you just describe number 3, semi-corrective action plan? That, yeah.
That's a state mandated program, the Special Education Medicaid Initiative. There are certain parameters, certain objectives that are expected of a school district. And a lot of it has to do with reaching out to parents, contacting eligible parents, and getting responses back from those parents, which is not the easiest thing to do. And it all feeds into what we do get reimbursed from the SEMI program. So, we do make those efforts, but it's largely out of our hands. So this is an annual motion that we're asked to do.
Got it. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Sprayberry?
Yeah, on 13, the math program, it says, just want to make sure I'm reading it right. It says that 5 subsequent years at a total cost of $346,199.03. Is that for each year or?
No,
That's total.
5-year.
Okay, I said total cost, but I just want to make sure I read it right.
That's everything, yes.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Bogosian, you want to move
And
this?
just to clarify, it's actually a 6-year, because it's this year and then 5 subsequent years.
Yes.
So it's a 6-year program, right?
I'd like to move motions 1 through 13 under finance.
All right, do we have a second? Mr. Sprayberry, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes on 1 through 10 and 12 through 13, abstaining on 11.
thank you. Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to policy. Mr. Healy, walk us through it.
Yes, we did not have a committee meeting since our last board meeting, but we did correspond with the administration and received responses to our questions. There's one resolution with 19 policies and/or regulations for this evening to be put forth. The majority of the policy changes have to do with the categories, special categories, which were embedded into most of the policies, which are now going to be centralized, through a provider has given us that direction. So that's the majority of the change itself regarding equity and those conditions. That's it.
All right, thank you.
It's really a semantic change. Most of the policy language didn't change at all. It's the citation reference that changed in code that added a few more categories to protective classes. The only exception is the sports-related concussion and head injuries, which they review that every couple of years and tweak it a bit. But Mr. Frazier, who's on the various state and national committees that bring forward a lot of these, we're usually ahead of the curve even before the policy gets enacted.
I want to give you a shout out, Mr. Healy. You always ask really good clarifying questions. I feel like I don't have any questions after you've asked yours, so.
Mr. Hurley has patience and he does respond to them.
Nah.
And this is the first reading, just so.
Right, first reading of 2. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Lee, do you want to move those?
Yes, I would like to go forward with this, put forward this one resolution.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Mazzone, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, thanks. We're going to move on now to building and grounds. Mr. Sprayberry.
Good evening. We did not have a board buildings and ground committee meeting. We have 4 resolutions to put forward this evening. Number 1 is the SDA grant agreement, which Mr. Kelly covered in his budget presentation. The stone wall repairs for at the new field back here. The submission of approval for the PSA long-range capital improvement plan for the permission for PSA to submit to the state, and then waivers of fees for project graduation to use 2 buses for the 2024 year.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? Mr. Sprayberry?
Mr. Kelly, could you clarify with the PSA long-range submitted, have they prepared a plan already?
They're finalizing it right now. It's a state requirement. Every 5 years, there has to be a new long-range facilities plan. I think the capital improvement plan is a new addition onto that, but it is a state requirement. It was last done in 2019, so.
Okay, does it typically have any budget impact or something?
No, what it really is kind of a wish list of everything you'd like to do over the next 5 years to the buildings. You're not committed to anything. You can amend it if there's something else that comes up that you'd like to add into it. And at the end of the 5 years, you do it again. And,
Okay.
So.
And it's a rather, as Mr. Kelly said, it's a rather large list because you want to project, if it's in the plan, then you could go ahead at the time. If it's not in the plan, sometimes you have to go to an amendment to get it added to the plan. So it often comes out with a very hefty total price, but that's only if you choose or need to do those items.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Sprayberry, do you want to move this?
I'd like to move the 4 resolutions as for the superintendent for board's approval.
All right, and we have a second. Mr. Healy, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to old business. Ms. Jones.
Last Tuesday night, Mr. Bogosian, Mrs. Cole, and myself went to, it was actually held at Beckman School. It was Bergen County's Unsung Heroes. 55 students from Bergen County from different schools were honored. Their principals or guidance counselors speaking for them. In our case, Olivia Griggs, the counselor, couldn't make it, so Christina Cole spoke. Our student was Mackenzie Lancaster, who was a wonderful girl. I know her well, know her. She's quite a student. But it was such a moving ceremony for so many students that had such hardships. Besides the possibilities of some being visually handicapped, but so many lost a parent this year, and still were able to, to endure and achieve. I was moved with the whole thing. It was quite good. Long, 3 hours, but really, really wonderful. I'm hoping that next year if we have a student, we can go again. It was good. It was very nice.
Thank you. Any other old business?
No, just a note when Mackenzie was being honored and they put the screen up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm at the podium and I'm looking and I'm like, Rutherford, it had Rutherford Rams and had like the Ram mascot.
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Bogosian for sending the Bulldog out to the organizer of the event so that or we replaced him with the Ram, but then it only got like half the Bulldog and the But I said to you, right, half a bulldog is better than a whole ram.
Right.
Yes.
Anything else under old business? All right, move on to legislative update. Mrs. Jones?
Yes. Actually, there's two ones that make me laugh. 83677, which was sent to the Education Committee on February 12th, 24, so that's just recently, provides any superintendent salary caps adopted by the Commissioner of Education will apply to charter school administrators. I thought that might be it, just wanted to follow that one. The Bergen County Passaic rep and District 5 one, William Pearson, and well, I don't think the names really matter. There's 3 Democrats. And the other one, A3665, requires public schools to include instruction in cursive writing. Oh, back up again.
Well, you see, that's an archaic law because that's now in the new standards. So you have to do it now. That's the Jones Clause in the new standards.
Well, you know, I was told that the other one was never going to go through because it was not enough backing for it.
No, it's there. It's in the
There-
standards. We have to,
there-
well, actually, the standards doesn't say cursive writing. It says writing. It allows you to choose.
It says
But I think here in Rutherford, we know what we're going to deal with if we don't choose cursive. So,
the ever-increasing reliance on computers and related technologies has left students with keyboarding skills, but lacking the abilities to read in cursive. They're more upset that they can't read in cursive
Mhm.
than write it. So I don't know, we'll see where it goes, but I just found that interesting. It's back up again.
All right,
I
thank
still
you.
may march with Trenton if we get to that.
is the sponsor of that bill in your district that you voted in?
No, well, it's Bergen and Passaic, kind of, but
Yeah.
Gary, Sher.
Yeah, Gary's.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. At 8:02 PM, we're going to open the meeting to the public for anything related to or not related to the agenda this evening. Anything for us? All right, hearing nothing, we're going to close the meeting at 8:03 PM. And we do have a need for an executive session for 1 student issue, 2 contract issues, no action to be taken. Be out for about 10, 15 minutes. So need a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Sprayberry, seconded by Mr. Mazzone. Thank you. Oh, all in favor? Aye. All right.